Welcome back to the Great and Spacious Building. I'm Dr. Wayne Denton. In our last episode, we explored how Joseph Smith Jr.'s early life was defined by the folk magic traditions and supernatural economy of his time. We saw how his reputation as a seer, an individual with the ability to see things not visible to the naked eye, was built through treasure-seeking activities. His charisma was rooted in these practices, not in traditional religious fervor of the day. Today we're going to delve into the fascinating and complex process of how Smith leveraged that magical foundation to become a charismatic religious leader, a prophet who founded a new American religion. The journey from seer to prophet began with the publication of the Book of Mormon in 1830. This was the key moment that transformed Joseph Smith from a local folk magician into a figure of national and eventually global significance. The narrative of the Book of Mormon, which told the story of an ancient civilization in the Americas, resonated with a public fascinated by the supernatural and mysteries of the continent's past. What's particularly revealing is the translation process itself. As his assistants, David Whitmer and Emma Smith described it, Joseph didn't actually look at the gold plates to translate them. Instead, he placed one of his seer stones in a hat, put his face in the hat to block out the light, and dictated the words that appeared on the magical stone. This method was a direct continuation of the magical practices he had honed during his years as a treasure seeker. For his followers, this wasn't a sign of fraud, it was proof of his divine gifts. The use of the seer stone in a hat, a tool of his trade, made his claims of translating an ancient record plausible and tangible to his early followers, many of whom were already immersed in this worldview. The creation of the Book of Mormon allowed Smith to begin the process of routinization, or transforming his personal charisma into a formal, structured organization. The first step was the establishment of the Church of Christ on April 6, 1830. This was a significant shift. He moved from the egalitarian idea of whosoever repenteth and come unto me, the same as my church, to a structured body with specific ordinances. This newfound structure presented a major challenge to Smith's authority. If the ability to receive revelations was a spiritual gift accessible to anyone, why did the church need a single leader? This tension came to a head when one of the Book of Mormon witnesses, Hiram Page, began receiving his own revelations through a seer stone. Page's revelations were at odds with Smith's, and many key members of the church, including Oliver Cowdery and the Whitmer family, were beginning to believe them. Smith's response was a masterclass in consolidating power. He received a new revelation that unequivocally declared, "No one shall be appointed to receive commandments and revelations in the church, excepting my servant Joseph Smith Jr., for he receiveth them even as Moses." This revelation, delivered at a church conference, effectively ended the legitimacy of all other seers and their stones, including Page's. The practice of using seer stones for revelation was now confined solely to the church's leader. This was a critical moment where Smith transformed himself from a prophet into the prophet. As the church grew, so did the opposition. The Saints' journey from New York to Kirtland, Ohio, and then to Missouri was fraught with conflict. The tensions in Missouri were particularly brutal, leading to the Mormon extermination order by Governor Lilburn Boggs. The Saints were expelled from the state, and Smith was arrested, only to escape during a daring midnight jailbreak. These setbacks, however, only served to strengthen Smith's charisma and authority. The persecution narrative became a powerful tool. For his followers, these trials were proof that they were God's chosen people, living out a prophetic story of prosperity and hardship, just like the civilizations that had been described in the Book of Mormon. In Nauvoo, Illinois, their new home, Smith rallied his followers to build a flourishing city from a swamp infested with malaria. He used his powerful oratory skills to inspire the saints, telling them that their energy, skill, talents, and ability were needed to roll forth with that glory and majesty described by the prophet. It was in Nauvoo that Smith's charisma reached its peak. With a city charter that gave him unprecedented legal power, he was able to introduce doctrines that would have been unthinkable just a few years earlier. The most significant of these was the practice of plural marriage or polygamy. He leveraged his position as the sole recipient of revelation to introduce this controversial doctrine, which he claimed was a restoration of Old Testament practices. By sharing this doctrine with other leaders, he created an exclusive, aristocratic class within the church and used plural marriage to build a dynastic family, thereby consolidating his power at the top of the church. In 1844, Smith's charisma took its final and most radical form. He declared his candidacy for the U.S. presidency. His platform was remarkably progressive for the era, advocating for prison reform, humane treatment of Native Americans, and most notably, the abolition of slavery. His plan was to use federal funds to purchase the freedom of enslaved people, a stance that was far more progressive and liberal than his contemporaries. However, this bold move, along with the growing controversies surrounding polygamy and his unorthodox theology, created an unsustainable level of tension. As historian and sociologist Armand Maas wrote, a movement that becomes too peculiar invites repression and threatens not only the movement's success, but its very existence. And on June 27, 1844, this would come to fruition. A mob murdered Joseph Smith and his brother Hiram in a jail in Carthage, Illinois. His death was a tragic end to a tumultuous life, but it also cemented his status as a martyr and a sustainable hero. The charismatic energy he had cultivated, which began with a seer stone and a hat, was now firmly embedded in a formal religious structure. In our next episode, we'll explore how his death, far from ending the movement, provided the impetus for its greatest expansion under the leadership of Brigham Young, and how his charisma, channeled through this new institutional structure that was the church, had lasting and complex effects on the church's doctrine and especially its views on race. Thanks again for joining me today, and if you enjoyed this episode, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and ring the bell so you don't miss out on future installments of the Great and Spacious Building. I'll see you next time.